What's good, everybody? Episode 3, Ultimate 216 Show, man. Today we're going to get a little crazy. I got some wild ass ideas in my head about the Cleveland Browns and how they should go about acquiring a wide receiver. Plus, man, the Cleveland Cavaliers are finally back in action after the All-Star break. All that and more next on the Ultimate 216 Show. What's going on, everybody? Man, it's your host, Earl Da Pearl. You were watching episode 3 of the Ultimate 216 Show, man. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell so that you can get notifications for this show, all of our other spinoff shows, and of course, our flagship, the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I hope you all truly enjoyed the show earlier today. I thought we had a fire conversation. Today, on this show, we're going to continue the wide receiver acquisition conversation just a little bit more. So over the last couple of days, we've talked about Mike Evans, and today we talked about Mike Williams a little bit. And y'all know me by now. You know, I get a little crazy with some of my takes. I get a little crazy with some of my thoughts. And I try to think outside the box or come up with ideas that probably won't happen, but it'll make you go, wow, if they do happen. And so I got a couple guys that I want to talk about today that I feel like could be some potential or possibility of players who can come in here and play opposite of Amari Cooper next season. As always, man, drop the U216 hashtag in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from. It's always an honor to be here with y'all. Went live a little bit earlier today. Got some other obligations to tend to around the 5 o'clock hour, but you all still deserve to get the content that we promised to give y'all. So here we are. So I'm gonna just start by setting this up with this. Some of these dudes that you hear 9 times out of 10 probably won't end up on the Cleveland Browns roster this year. A lot of this is, it's just an assumption based on where we are right now. I understand that some of these dudes might get a new deal with their current team. They might be even franchise tagged, or they might have options that they might feel like are a better option than coming and playing for the Cleveland Browns. And so I'm going to try to break this down with crazy, insane, but probably won't happen, to a trade that might be like, okay, I can see this possibly happen. And then a couple just wide receiver free agent signings. So I want to kind of like piss some people off. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger y'all early. So the first player that's on my list of players that I think the Browns should try to acquire. Ready for this? Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, A.J. Brown. Now, I done already jumped out the gym, and y'all probably like, man, this dude done lost his mind. I'm about to turn him off. Don't turn me off yet. Just hear me out a little bit, right? So I read an article on The Athletic, and I was looking at other teams' biggest needs. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, one of their weaknesses last season was their pass defense. Their pass defense was horrible, right? And they are in need of a number 2 cornerback. I don't know what the free agent market looks like as far as the cornerback position, but I do know the Philadelphia Eagles need one. And if you look at their number 1 corner, Darius Slay is now 32 years old, missed 5 games last year. What was the injury he had? He had a knee injury last year, right? And then you got James Bradbury, who did not perform that well in man-to-man situations, and he's 30 plus years old as well. Now, on the flip side of that, the A.J. Brown part, this is me just assessing the situation from afar. A.J. Brown seemed a little disgruntled with the Philadelphia Eagles towards the end of last year. And now we're in the offseason, and granted, emotions probably have cooled off and calmed down a little bit. But I couple all of that with the fact that Andrew Berry has a relationship with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this is the craziest of all the different trade scenarios that I had. But my thought process behind this was, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I know that my number 1 corner, Darius Slay, is aging. probably next season is his last year as a member of this team. And I also know James Bradbury is getting up there in age and really is not giving off the production that we need to see forth. Again, off the top of my brain, I don't know what this free agency market look like for cornerbacks, but I do know the Browns are in a situation to where they're going to have to make a decision on if they're going to pay Greg Newsome or Martin Emerson Jr. I truly believe the person that they will pay is Martin Emerson Jr. And so if that's the case, you really don't want to lose Greg Newsome for nothing. And Greg Newsome is also a guy who prefers to play outside and wants to be paid like an outside corner. And I don't knock him for that at all. And so to me, this could be a situation to where if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, they might look at Greg Newsome as a person that they can bring in, willing to pay him, and possibly make him their number one starting cornerback going forward. And I think that if AJ Brown is definitely disgruntled and no longer wants to be in Philadelphia, dude is already under contract. And I think, a big body receiver similar in build to Amari Cooper, similar in play style to Amari Cooper, I think that would be good for the Cleveland Browns. So that is the first of some crazy ass, kind of predictions that I had. The second one was the second trade, which probably is not likely, but more likely than the AJ Brown trade. It's a trade with the Detroit Lions. Now, what I'm about to say is with the assumption that the Detroit Lions find a way to re-sign Josh Reynolds, who pretty much served as their number 2 wide receiver last year. We know that offense is very, very potent. But what about a swing for the fences and probably try to trade for a dude like Jameson Williams, right? Williams, 22 years old, caught 24 balls off of 42 targets last season for 354 yards and 2 touchdowns. We all know in Detroit that Ahmad St. Brown is the man. That's the number 1 wide receiver, clearly. And I think that Jameis Williams has a lot of potential, but he's missed a lot of time in his first 2 years, whether it be due to injury or suspension. But when I watched the Detroit Lions a lot this past season, I just noticed like he wasn't really involved in a passing game the way that I thought he would be. You seen Reynolds kind of getting more targets than he got. And then you had the rookie Laporta who came in and really just stole the show. And then you got Jahmyr Gibbs, that's a running back, that's also a receiving option out of the backfield. And so if I'm the Detroit Lions and I'm looking at different ways that I can improve my team, these are a couple of things that I already know. I already know that my offense is potent without me really utilizing Jameson Williams in said way. But I also know that I have a very, very porous cornerback group as well. And I found a little write-up about the Detroit Lions, and this is what made this team very interesting to me as far as a possible trade partner. And again, I have Greg Newsome as, the key focal player for the Cleveland Browns in this trade scenario. Before I even continue with this, the one last thing on the Philadelphia Eagles spot, I'm pretty sure Greg Newsome alone is not enough to get that deal done. But Andrew Berry has shown me in the past that when it comes to the trade market, he knows how to go get a deal done. So I trust him to be able to do that. And so back to the Detroit Lions with this. They got a trio of corners by the name of Cam Sutton, Jerry Jacobs, and Kendall Vildor. All 3 of these dudes was like basically ineffective, really didn't have a huge positive impact on the Detroit Lions pass defense last year. Last year, the Lions allowed 7 yards per attempt. That was the 3rd worst in the entire NFL, and they struggled to contain top receivers down the stretch and in the playoffs. And so we all know offense is potent, but you got to have DBs that can stop these dudes. And this is another potential landing spot to where I think a trade between the Browns and the Detroit Lions, whether it just be a straight up player swap, makes sense, or a player with some picks that might possibly make some sense. Um, I think that this is another team that, Greg Newsome can possibly land at and get paid like a number one cornerback, because I don't think that's going to happen here in Cleveland. And with Jamison Williams, the Browns in return get a wide receiver who has not lived up to the expectations of being a first round pick throughout his 2 seasons. But this dude is fast. Like, we talk about having wide receivers on this team that can take the top off of defense. This dude is 6'1" and got wheels. And a lot of the fast guys that we talk about possibly adding to this roster or shorter dudes. So this is a dude that got a little bit more size to him. I think he has a lot of upside. And I think that, pairing him with Amari Cooper to go with Elijah Moore and whoever else they bring in, I think that too can be a good idea for the Cleveland Browns. So those are the two that I got via trade. And I understand like both of these is very, very unlikely, but that's why they are crazy ass trade scenarios for the Cleveland Browns. So y'all let me know what y'all think about that. So far, we didn't cover AJ Brown and we didn't cover Jamison Williams. And like I said, both of these far-fetched probably won't happen. But you know what, man? It's February 22nd. We can dream a little bit. We can imagine a little bit, right? A lot of these dudes might end up staying exactly where they are. Those just seem so intriguing to me, because I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, I know that the Browns need a wide receiver, but if you seen a tweet the other day from Mina Kimes, she lists 20 of the 32 NFL teams that's in desperate need of a cornerback. And those two teams that I started this off with are two teams that's in desperate need of a cornerback, the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I just feel like, in the Eagles case, their defense is just as much as a staple, if not a bigger staple to their success as their offense. And, if Andrew Berry can make the right phone calls, get the right people on the phone, he might be able to convince somebody that, hey, you take Greg Newsome and you got your future number one corner. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the chat. I don't think that's the worst idea. I know that's probably the craziest idea because most people will say, ain't no way in hell the Philadelphia Eagles would trade A.J. Brown. But I thought that about the Tennessee Titans, and they ended up trading him too. So, and like I said, with Jamison Williams, young dude, a lot of speed, a lot of potential. And I think a fresh start for him can possibly help. And I think that if you get a quality number two, I think it does more to open up, opportunities for Elijah Moore. A couple other dudes that I did have on this list that I had. Calvin Ridley Jr. I think that's a dude that the Cleveland Browns should consider signing. I think of the dudes that's not named T. Higgins, who ultimately was probably going to end up, back with the Cincinnati Bengals, or even Mike Evans. I know we talked about Mike Evans before, but I find it very unlikely that he leave Tampa Bay. I think of the guys that I consider to be realistic, I think Calvin Ridley is probably the second best of that group. I'm going to save my favorite for last. But Calvin Ridley, 29 years old, went for over 1,000 yards last year with 8 touchdowns. I think that dude is a solid number 2 wide receiver. Christian Kirk seems to be the man for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It seems like Calvin Ridley was just inconsistent a lot, with Trevor Lawrence. He had games to where he would go for 3 catches and 30-something yards, turn around the next week and it's 5-6 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. And so I think it really just depends on how they want to go about handling their business. I know they got some serious team needs themselves. I'm looking at this article as I'm talking to you all. They got needs for offense. They need offensive line help. They need defensive line help. And teams that got a franchise quarterback, I think that the priority on protecting that quarterback is just as high, if not higher, than the pass catchers that they're throwing to. So it says the Jaguars finished the season next to last in yards before contact per rush. It's no coincidence that then the Jags also finished 30th in yards per attempt, 31st in rushing EPA, 30th in rushing success rate. All of this to say that the Jaguars' ground game was atrocious and must improve if Trevor Lawrence and company hope to get back to the AFC title hunt. And so if you look at that, Trevor Lawrence, he even got hurt last year. I don't know what their cap situation looks like off the top of my head, but I know that they don't have a starting left guard currently under contract, and the interior of the offensive line is just as premium as it is with the tackles. And Brian Scherf, who's their best offensive lineman, may be cut for salary cap relief. So if they already have salary cap issues and they need to address the offensive line, I think it's very unlikely that they got the money to actually re-sign Calvin Ridley. So signing Calvin Ridley, I think, will be another solid move for Andrew Berry to make. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that one right there. So we done got through three guys. We got Calvin Ridley on this list. We got A.J. Brown on this list. And we got Jamison Williams on this list. So I'm going to stop for a hot second. And y'all tell me what y'all think. Of those three dudes that we just talked about to start with, which of those three would you prefer before I get to the final three? And don't forget, man, while you are watching this, thank you. But also, don't forget, man, catch the Ultimate Cavs show, catch the Ultimate Brown show, and catch the Ultimate Guardian show coming to you at March UCSS spinoff shows, man. Make sure you hit that notification button and ring the bell to stay caught up on the latest that's going on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube page. We got Phil Bowman said, sup, Earl, Christian Kirk might work. So, Phil, my thought process is, I don't know how much of this you caught. My thought process is sign Calvin Ridley. I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars will have the money to re-sign him. This is a team that they're struggling with offensive line help. They got one guard under contract that might be cut due to being a cap casualty. They need a starting left guard, and you got to be able to keep your franchise quarterback upright. I think the fact that they got Zay Jones, they got Evan Ingram, and they got Christian Kirk, I think they feel comfortable with that as a pass catching group to where they might be willing to just move on from Calvin Ridley, which could be good news for the Cleveland Browns. So we got about 10 minutes left to get this list complete. Another person that I had on this list was, and this is my favorite person on this entire list. This is the person that this offseason I want more than any other wide receiver. And it's Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver from the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman Jr. is 24 years old. He's coming off a career season where he went for over 1,000 yards. I think he scored 4 touchdowns. Dude is just a dog, a flat-out playmaker. And I know that the Colts have a rookie quarterback or a quarterback coming off his rookie season and Anthony Richardson. And so it makes sense to keep as many weapons around him as you possibly can. But when it comes to Indianapolis Colts, see, this is what I'm doing as I'm doing this exercise. I am trying to be realistic about what I believe the Cleveland Browns need, but also try to put myself in the shoes of the opposing team's GM and that team and what that team need might be. Now, when it comes to the Colts, there's a high chance that they might franchise tag Michael Pittman. But let's say that they don't because they can't. Again, we don't know what no team salary cap situation is, how they look, any of that. So the Colts secondary is another, again, 20 of those 32 teams that really can use some DBs, right? This is not a trade scenario. This is a scenario to where I'm wondering this offseason if the Colts is going to look at Michael Pittman as priority number one. Secondary was repeatedly torched in 2023, largely due to his inexperience and the injuries in the cornerback room. The Colts' most experienced corner, Kenny Moore, is set to become a free agent. And even if they retain the 28-year-old, there's no other proven options on the roster. A guy, Juju Brent, was a second-round pick last year, showed some promise towards the beginning of the season, but was limited due to injuries in just 9 games. Kenny Moore is a dog at corner. He used to play outside in the slot. I think inside in the slot. I think he still plays the nickel a lot. That dude is a beast. He can flat out play football. And I think he might be priority number one for the Indianapolis Colts. And they're definitely going to need more DBs. They also got a young wide receiver in Josh Dobbs that they just recently drafted last year, who's a rookie. And they got another young wide receiver. I can't really think of his name off the top of my head. But this is a dude who, when he did play, showed some promise. And it just has me wondering that, okay, is keeping Michael Pittman around the Colts' top priority? Because if they know that they have other pressing needs and they possibly need to look at other areas, then you might be able to move on. But at the same time, you really don't let talented players just, walk away like that. Alec Pierce is the other wide receiver that I was thinking about. So they got Alec Pierce and they got Josh Downs, who was a rookie last year, that if they were to move on and not re-sign Michael Pittman, I still think they got enough in that pass catching room. So for me, Michael Pittman is the dude who I legit want. Again, 24 years old, coming off a rookie deal. You got a new franchise quarterback. It's probably unlikely that happens as well, but we can dream, right? If we can get that dude, that would be crazy. So the craziest of this whole damn exercise was A.J. Brown. Greg Newsome and a pick for A.J. Brown. Again, the Philadelphia Eagles, their top need this offseason is a number 2 cornerback, possibly a number 1 cornerback, with Darius Slade being up there in age. I think if we was to trade them Greg Newsome, it would be with the mindset that they view Greg Newsome as him, a guy that they're willing to pay some money to and possibly make their number 1 or number 2 cornerback of the future. And return when we get a proven wide receiver in A.J. Brown and pair next to Amari Cooper. In the second scenario, again, far-fetched, was an unproven talent with a lot of potential in Jamison Williams, Detroit Lions wide receiver, who seems to be not a top passing priority over there. Ross St. Brown is the number 1 option. You got Sam Laporta. You got Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, I think they're going to bring Josh Reynolds back in free agency. This is another team who, probably worse than Philadelphia, can use some cornerback help. Again, 7.3 yards per attempt, was 3rd worst in the entire NFL last year. I think that if you can possibly make a deal with Detroit, again, sell these dudes on, you getting a cornerback and Greg Newsome, who can possibly be your number 1 or your number 2 cornerback going forward if you decide to pay him. And I think Detroit is more realistic than what people think, because you got to think about it. In 2020, they drafted Jeff Okudah, number 3 overall. So clearly, they are definitely trying to address that cornerback position. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I talked about signing Calvin Ridley, which might make a lot of sense, might be able to get the job done, but if that dude wanted to go play with somebody like Pat Mahomes, that wouldn't surprise me. We just talked about Michael Pittman, which is my personal favorite that I really want. And I'm saying all that to say that more than likely the Browns is going to sign Gabe Davis. Right? We did all of that just to get to that point. The Browns is probably going to sign Gabe Davis. So I just think that being paired with Ken Dorsey in the past, I just think he's the most realistic option. He's probably not the sexiest name out there, He's probably nobody that is going to make fans kind of like, jump up and down and go crazy. But again, 24 years old. We talked today about Mike Williams. I think that Mike Williams and Gabe Davis kind of like are one and the same. Like if you don't get one and you got the other, you kind of getting the same player. The only difference is Gabe is 24 years old. Mike Evans is 28, turning 29. 27 career touchdowns, but has been very, very inconsistent as a player. I think that if you get him here with Kevin Stefanski, of course, he's very familiar with Ken Dorsey. A change of scenery might do him some good. I will say this. He wasn't the only one struggling to really get the ball. Stephon Diggs probably had the worst year of his career or worst year since he's been in Buffalo on that staff. So y'all tell me what y'all think. I know a lot of these dudes, like I said, some unlikely candidates here, but we can dream, right? We can try to explore some different options, trying to go inside these minds. And I know these is kind of crazy thoughts, but at the same time, I've seen crazier things happen. I can remember when the Cleveland Browns traded for Odell Beckham. And this was a year after Odell Beckham had signed that brand new deal. And a lot of people were saying, man, if y'all think the Giants are going to trade Odell Beckham, you're crazy. Even if a situation sounds crazy and far-fetched, if there's a small percent chance that it's going to happen, I'm a person that focuses on that small percent chance. I'm going to let everybody else in the mass worry about how much it may not happen. That's just me. That's just how I am. So y'all let me know what y'all think of that. I'm going to read some of these comments real quick. Scott Wood says, I can't see them letting go of Pittman, although his name keeps coming up with Higgins. I don't see either moving on, but who knows? Scott, I feel you on that, right? Like, I can't really say I can see either one of those dudes moving on, but if they did, I don't think it would hurt to kind of like entertain that. Let me see. Tempe 1D. I guess that's right. No name, no picture for real. AJ Brown isn't available. So Eagles just give up their number one for cornerback. Come on, E. Does that make sense? They can make a Super Bowl. Browns need to win the playoff game. Big difference. Tempe, I'm not sure how much of this broadcast you caught, but I started this off saying these are some crazy ideas for Andrew Berry to go get the Cleveland Browns impact wide receiver. And I also tempered the expectations by saying most of these most likely won't happen, but we can have some fun and we can dream. Scott also said, I'd be outside Mike Evans' window every night until free agency with a boombox, romancing the shit out of him until he signs. Phil Bowman says, Mike Williams, healthy, can be a beast. I'm not totally against the Browns signing Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a big play threat. That's the dude when Justin Herbert needed like a 40-plus yard wide receiver reception. He wasn't throwing those to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen gets a lot of the, closer to the line of scrimmage type passes and type routes. But Mike Williams is your downfield threat. The dude is a big playability, right? And if he's healthy and we can find ourselves in the situation to get him, he already has previous chemistry with Deshaun Watson. So that's somebody to look at as well. Matthew says, what about Jerry Jeudy or Sutton from Denver? I'm actually a huge fan of Cortland Sutton more than I am Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy is all name and still living off that hype in his college career at Alabama. I'm not really sure how great he want to be, if that dude really wants to be great. But Cortland Sutton for sure. Like that dude don't drop passes. All he do is catch touchdowns, and he's another big body wide receiver. So that's what I think. Just curious to know what y'all think. I'll probably go back and read some of these comments after the show just to get a gauge on some crazy ideas that you all might have as well. So who knows, right? Let me see here. My man Scott says, I love your passion, Earl. Thanks for the cast. No problem, man. Like I said, third episode, just doing my best to kind of bring y'all some content. We usually talk about a bunch of different stuff in here, but this was really on my mind and I wanted to get it out. Phil again. So we are giving up on said Tillman. I'm not giving up on said Tillman, but I ain't counting on said Tillman either. Right? Like the thing is, the reason why I threw those crazy ass trade scenarios out there is because if you look at the three ways that you can acquire talent, trade, free agency, Lord have mercy, in the draft. When it comes to the wide receiver position, I think we all can agree Andrew Berry has been stronger in the trade market than he has drafting a wide receiver or even a bringing a dude in here via free agency. And so that's why I went with the trades first. Long as we get some talent in here at the end of the day, I really don't give a damn who it is, what your last name is, or whatever the case may be. I think we all really, really just want to see an upgrade at the wide receiver position. And it'll be interesting to see how it works out, especially as teams start handing out franchise tags and, signing guys to new deals. It'll just be interesting to see who's still available and how Andrew Berry worked his magic. Paul says, I would bet on Gabe because he is what fits the way our front office does things. I feel like our window with Deshaun is right now, so we need to be all in, get a top-tier wide receiver, not a possible good one. Yeah, so Paul, I went through the whole list. I said everybody's name just to end up with, I think the Browns is going to end up signing Gabe Davis. So me and you, Matthew, I'm not out on Brandon Ayuk. I still think that'd be great as well. So my man Tippy says 60 people in here. Less than that in likes. Come on, y'all. What you doing? Hit the like button real quick. Yeah, definitely hit that like button, man. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear. I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to keep track of this, right? I think this is something that we're going to do for a couple weeks. I threw some crazy-ass trade scenarios out there, some guys that I think the Browns should go sign, and as guys get franchise tagged, as guys come off the market, we'll see who's still on the list from this episode, and then we'll reassess the situation. Another thing before I get out of here, because I only got 2 minutes, man, find some balance in your life, right? That's something that I'm still working on doing for myself, creating personal and professional balance. A lot of times we focus so much on chasing our dreams and chasing our goals that we allow our personal life and the things and the people that matter to kind of get out of whack. So just because you love what you do and just because you want to make some good money and put your family in a better position, just remember, man, if you don't give attention to that other side of your life, you could be looking up, man, and be doing great things, but be doing it by yourself. So just something to think about, man, to the next time. I love y'all. Remember, be great, spread love, being great. That thing come with a price. Spreading love is priceless. I'm out of here.